You open your eyes to the sound of servants quietly preparing your bath. Warm water-scented oils of freshly killed goose waiting for your breakfast. Outside, your vineyard stretches as far as the eye can see, and somewhere in the distance, a man you own is weeding it. That is more or less what it felt like to be rich in the ancient world. But here's the thing. It was not just luxury. It was a completely different relationship with existence itself. Being wealthy in antiquity meant something profoundly different from what it means today. It was not just about comfort, it was about power and performance and fear and the constant exhausting theater of being seen. For a wealthy Roman senator in, say, 100 AD, the day began early. Not because he had to, but because power in Rome was transactional, social, and relentless. Every morning, hundreds of clients, people who depended on his political favor, would line up outside his home before dawn. This ritual was called the salutatio. It was essentially a morning audience, like a very small king holding court while still in his robe. The senator would walk through this crowd of anxious, flattering humans, granting requests, making promises, dispensing small gifts called sportulae, little baskets of food or coins, and generally enjoying the spectacle of people being very, very nice to him. This happened every single morning, and if you were rich enough, your crowd could number in the thousands. Think about that for a second. Every morning, thousands of people showing up to your house just to be in your presence. Today, we call that a follower count. In Rome, they called it influence. Meanwhile, his wife, if she came from a wealthy family herself, was undergoing her own ritual. Hair was architecture in Roman aristocracy. A skilled ornatrix, a hairdresser who was almost always enslaved, would spend hours building elaborate curls, braids, and towers of false pieces held together with metal pins and imported beeswax. The goal was not beauty as we understand it. The goal was signal. Her hair said, "I have nothing to do with my hands. I have people for that. I can afford to sit here for 3 hours while someone turns my head into a monument." And this was the deep truth of ancient wealth. Everything had to be seen. There was no such thing as quiet luxury. If you had it and you did not show it, you might as well not have it, because showing it was how you kept it. Status without display was a contradiction in terms. The richest people in Rome did not wear discreet watches or drive understated cars. They wore purple dye extracted painfully from thousands of sea snails. They wore rings on every finger. They had slaves walk behind them just to carry their napkin. Because in a world without credit scores or stock portfolios or verified social media badges, your wealth was only real if other people witnessed it and felt small because of it. Let us go deeper into the economics of this because it is genuinely wild. Today, if you are rich, you put your money in assets. Real estate, stocks, bonds, private equity. Your wealth grows invisibly. You might live in a nice house, but your neighbor might not know you are worth $100 million. That is a modern invention. In the ancient world, wealth was not abstract. Wealth was land and people and grain and metal. You could not hide it. Your wealth was your vineyard, your olive groves, your herds, your warehouses full of amphorae of oil and wine, and most crucially, your human beings. A wealthy Roman household might own 400 enslaved people. 400. That is not a household, that is a small city. And those people did everything. They cooked and cleaned and farmed and built and taught and doctored and managed money and raised children and served as sex workers and served as status symbols and served as furniture. Because in ancient wealth, people were not just labor. People were objects. A beautiful young enslaved person from Greece or Syria standing silently by your dining couch was not a servant. That was a decoration. That was a statement. That was a living, breathing piece of art that said, "I am so rich, I can turn a human being into a vase." But here is the part that modern people do not understand. Being a rich Roman was exhausting. It was not a life of leisure. It was a life of relentless performance. Your house was not a home. Your house was a stage. The Roman domus, the elite townhouse, was designed from the ground up for spectacle. You walked through the front door into the atrium, a massive open hall with a pool in the center to catch rainwater. Around that pool stood the wax death masks of your ancestors. Every single one of them had been a magistrate, or a consul, or a general. And every single person who entered your home could see them. That was your branding. That was your social proof. That was your way of saying, "My family has been powerful since before your grandfather could read." Beyond the atrium was the tablinum, the office where you conducted business, but even that was open to view. And beyond that, the peristyle, a columned garden full of statues, fountains, and carefully pruned plants. Your entire house was a museum of your own greatness, and you could never close the door because closing the door meant hiding, which meant weakness. Think about what that does to a human mind. You wake up every morning to hundreds of people waiting to beg you for favors. You eat breakfast while someone watches. You get dressed while someone watches. You walk through your own house and every room is designed for an audience. You go to the forum and you are surrounded by clients and rivals and slaves carrying your litter. You go to the baths and you are seen. You go to dinner and you are seen. You go to the toilet and there is probably an enslaved person holding your robe. There was no privacy. There was no escape. The only time you were truly alone was when you were dead. And maybe not even then, because your death mass would be displayed in your son's atrium for generations. So being rich in the ancient world meant being trapped in a glass house of your own making. You could not step off the stage because the moment you did, someone else would take your place and your clients would go to his door tomorrow morning and your influence would leak away like water through cracked clay. This pressure produced some truly bizarre behaviors. Take Gaius Sallustius Crispus, known to history as Sallust the historian. He was immensely wealthy. He had gardens so famous they bear his name to this day, the Gardens of Sallust on the Pincian Hill in Rome. But Sallust was also anxious. He had clawed his way up from a provincial family. He was not born to the purple. And that anxiety turned into a kind of hysterical luxury. He built his gardens into a paradise of porticos and pavilions and sculptures. He filled them with art stolen from Greece. He created one of the most beautiful private spaces in the entire Roman world. And then he almost never used it, because he was too busy writing bitter histories about the moral decay of Rome. He could not enjoy his own wealth because he was too afraid of losing it. And he was right to be afraid, because in the ancient world fortunes vanished overnight. A political rival accuses you of treason. Your property is confiscated. Your slaves are tortured for evidence. Your house is razed. Your name is erased. That happened all the time. The difference between a senator and a beggar was sometimes one bad dinner party. Let us talk about the food, because the food tells the whole story. A rich Roman dinner was not a meal. It was a weapon. You invited your rivals to your house and you fed them things that should have been impossible. Dormice rolled in honey and poppy seeds. Sows udders stuffed with sea.